Before we start, I'm going to tell you a bit more about who we are. So my name is Miloš. I'm a program coordinator of nj.e from Banja Luka, that is the host of this series of events, Coffee With, where we are actually hosting our friends and foreign ambassadors to Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is my honor to present to you our today's guest speaker, His Excellency Matthew Field, UK Ambassador in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Mr. Field, thank you so much for your time, and we really appreciate your effort and your time, and having you here is a great honor.
It's my pleasure. No, thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation, Miloš, and thanks everyone for joining, I'm sure. There are many other things you could be doing, but I'm really pleased to be here and to have the chance to interact with all of you.
Pleasure is ours. Thank you so much. For the beginning of this conversation and then the event, it is not the $1 million or £1 million question, but everybody is talking about this issue nowadays, especially in the previous several months. So Corona time, COVID-19 is the global issue that affects all of us. We are kind of stuck at home, doing our businesses, dealing with our issues from our home surrounding. And can you actually tell us and describe how this whole situation affected you, maybe your family, your staff, and the work of Embassy of UK in Bosnia?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's Miloš, this isn't a surprise, but you know, it feels a long time ago, but so much has happened in such a short space of time. I mean, it's only just over a month ago that I was with the embassy. We were preparing for a visit by Prince Charles to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it was looking pretty risky, and then we realized that we would need to cancel it. I think it was the Friday before he was due to come. And then within a couple more days, suddenly we were not only doing that, we were changing the entire way the embassy operated. We moved to almost all of our staff working from home. Very similar things were happening in London at the same time. Now, I think 93% of our staff in the UK are working from home. So it was a big change very quickly, and then a whole load of other things that came out from that. So our immediate priority, trying to look after British nationals. Not so much the ones who live here normally, because they tended to have the support networks in place, they understood what was happening, but particularly British people who were travelling through. The flights stopped pretty quickly as well. The borders closed, and then we were trying to help those last few Brits that wanted to leave to get out, to get back to the UK. And also, as it happened, we helped some Bosnian citizens come back from the UK as well, so we had sort of an exchange of people going in both directions. But an enormous amount seems to have happened in that short space of time. I mean, this all affects us in a professional sense, but more than anything in a personal sense as well. So I am now working 4.5 days a week from my home, from a desk there. My kids are in a room downstairs in homeschool, which has been interesting as well, and also quite tough because they haven't been allowed to leave the home until last week. They were stuck inside the house for 5 weeks, so you know that kind of thing is pretty tough for them. And I think actually there's sort of personal impact through all this period, but at the same time I'm still trying to do my job. And maybe this is a surprise for me. I think a lot of us are learning how much of our jobs we can do remotely, actually. So I would have said, as a diplomat, as an ambassador, my job was 90% face-to-face. And that's the opposite way around now. So now I'm doing 90% of my job remotely. I'm doing it like this, through video calls. I'm doing it through group discussions, through a lot of other tools that we use. But we're sort of doing it differently. And I think that has been the real, maybe positive lesson from this. And we can discuss some more about this. And I'd be really interested as to what people on the line have experienced as well. I know that Banja Luka has been the centre of a number of cases. There have been some quite quick, quite strict measures brought in here. But actually, maybe we're starting to see the results of that, and that the curve has been, I think, flattened maybe to a positive degree, and so we're starting to see those restrictions loosen up. Maybe just the last quick thing on the UK, because clearly, you know, a lot of my family is in the UK, friends there, so very concerned to see what's happening there. It's serious, but it's also about you know, a responsible response from lots of people. So people are listening to the measures, they're staying at home, my parents are staying at home, people are keeping the distances, they are thinking about others as well. And maybe that's another positive we can talk about the sort of solidarity that people have expressed as we go forward. So I think it's been a really sort of interesting experience. I think it's been quite challenging in lots of ways. We've had to change lots of things about the way that we work as an embassy, but actually many things that we are able to continue. And I think that's, you know, true in many cases. Miloš, please.
Yes, the thing that you said, that being an ambassador is 90% of the work face-to-face. So regarding that, that you actually mentioned, I'm interested to hear more. How is it actually to be ambassador? What are the, how to say, the responsibilities, the daily duties, and some kind of practical work that you are obliged, let's say, to do every day? How does it look like?
Sure. I mean, the first thing is, you know, this is my first time being an ambassador. So in some ways, I'm still trying to work out the answer to that question. What I've tried to do over the last couple of years in this job is to, you know, really think of myself as, you know, part of the embassy team. So we're not a huge embassy by local standards. You know, we're nothing like the same size as the Americans or the EU or the OSCE. But I think we're pretty efficient. I mean, most of the staff, so we do have some other diplomats, but most of our staff are local staff. Most of them are Bosnian and Herzegovinian citizens. And my job really is to help them deliver their jobs. So the big kind of areas that you would expect, yes, looking after British nationals here, but our overall objective here is trying to help the country be successful, stable, prosperous, and moving in the right direction. So most of what we're doing as a team, whether it's the political team, the defence section, project staff, commercial officer, you know, we're all trying to do the same thing, pull in the same direction. My job as the ambassador is to provide that sort of bigger picture, but also to help people, especially in those sort of senior relationships that we need here. I have to say Bosnia and Herzegovina is a brilliant place to be an ambassador. It is incredibly frustrating and complicated and confusing. But if you like politics, as I do, and if you like complicated, messy problems, then this is a fascinating place to be. And actually, I feel very, very lucky to be representing the UK here. I mean, it's been by far the biggest challenge of my professional life. It has been hugely difficult in many ways, not only with the recent period, but it's also been enormously good fun and enormously rewarding. I'd never really done much media work in the past, and one of the things about the ambassador is that you are the face of the organisation. So I've had to do much more. I've had to learn about social media, made some mistakes, learned some lessons. I've done a lot of TV, print, traditional media. And I've tried to build relationships with all the sort of key people. Yes, on the political side, but actually just as important, civil society, with businesses as well, and just trying to understand what makes the country tick and how the UK can help. That's probably the biggest question of all.
Exactly, yes. On our first coffee with when we were talking with the Ambassador Minassi from Italy, we were actually mentioning UK ambassador that was appointed here in Bosnia before you, Excellency Ferguson, and he was the guy that during the one opportunity when he visited our university back at the time when I was still a student on Faculty of Political Sciences, he said, after I finish here with my job as ambassador, I think there isn't going to be any more challenging countries to be ambassador in. So you guys have actually all the challenges that one ambassador is about to be challenged and faced with. So it was kind of funny thing, but the true story. This is the complicated kind of area, especially in the political sense. Maybe to go on related also to that question, but to ask you, even though you are here since 2018, if I'm right,
Yes.
after let's look a bit in the future. After you finish with the work here as ambassador, is there already something from this country that you think that you are going to miss the most?
Sure. I mean, it was 2018 that I started as ambassador, but I have to admit that I cheated a bit because I worked for 2 years before that with the EU here. So I was seconded into the EUSR office. And so I had a couple of years first when I was heading up political work, so a very low profile job publicly, but really interesting and a really good way of sort of getting to understand a bit how things work here. In terms of things to miss, I mean, there are, I think one of the things that comes across in the work that I do, particularly the sort of public side of it, is, you know, my enthusiasm for the country. I think it's very hard to do this job if you're not curious and you're not in some way enthusiastic about the place that you've been posted. I didn't pick Bosnia and Herzegovina out of the hat. You know, it wasn't a lottery. It was a very deliberate choice that this was a country that I thought I had a lot I could learn about, the experience of working here, that it would be challenging and sort of stretching as well, but also that I could had something to contribute. And I think that's really been the case, and for us as a family as well. My wife is from Split. My first posting many years ago was in Zagreb, so I had some idea of what I was getting into. It's still not quite the same as actually getting here, but some idea at least. I mean, yes, this is a stunning country with amazing variety in a very small space. The skiing, snowboarding in the winter, the lakes, all of these wonderful things. But actually, to be honest, more than anything, it's the people. And I think, and I've tried to sort of understand this a bit to unpack it, but I think one of the reasons I've enjoyed it so much is that I think Brits and people from this country start from quite a similar sense of humour. And somehow that makes it much easier to connect with people. So the first thing is, generally speaking, we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we don't like people who take themselves too seriously, or we quite enjoy bringing down or popping bubbles of people who are too full of themselves. I think it's humour in even the darkest of times, and sometimes the darkest of humans, and I think that is evident at the moment as well. You know, some of the funniest things that I've seen posted or commented on have been in the last few weeks, and that's something that whether it's home or it's from friends here as well, so I've seen that also. But I think there's something there about sort of an attitude to life of trying to make the most of whatever the context is, and not taking it too seriously, but really trying to do the best with what you've got. And that's been my experience all over the country. And I think, I mean, it's easy to get hooked up on the complications here, but actually my experience day to day of working here, of being an ambassador here, is I get to meet fantastic people doing amazing things, often in quite difficult circumstances, but that feels like a privilege, and I feel very lucky still to be doing it.
It is, let's say that my personal opinion is that we here, as people living in Bosnia and Herzegovina, are really lucky to have a person like you being an ambassador in these circumstances, in these times. Not saying that Excellency Ferguson wasn't good enough. Somehow it always gets us to have a really great staff members and ambassadors, especially from UK. Here, all of the ambassadors that I can notice are really passionate about their job, about what are they doing. They are really looking forward to learn more about the cultures, about the diversity, about merging all of those diversities into one on this specific and small geographical area. So while I was preparing for this event, I read somewhere that you were talking in the previous months and years a lot about, let's say, brain drain. young people moving from this country outside to European Union, working, trying to find their future there. So would you still say that brain drain and, let's say, losing the potential of young people here in this country is still the highest priority to be addressed, or do you think there are some other priorities maybe regarding the challenges that we are facing with?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And again, I'd be interested very much in this group's thoughts on that question as well. I think brain drain for me jumped out as kind of the biggest issue, not only as an issue in itself, but also because of the things that lie behind it. So when I was trying to articulate, so what it is we're trying to do here as the UK, as a friend of this country, if we have extra assistance and we're increasing our assistance programs, then what should we do with it? What are the useful things we can do? And actually, there's many different areas of that: the rule of law, anti-corruption, organised crime, improving public services, economic opportunity, all those things. But actually, if you flip it round and you say, okay, well, one thing we can see is, it's hard to say the exact figures, but a lot of people are leaving. Yeah. So if a lot of young, qualified, talented people are leaving, and the lines outside the German embassy, the Austrian embassy, Slovenian consulate in Banja Luka would suggest that trend is continuing. Why are they leaving? Because is it a problem that people leave? In some ways, circular migration has happened for a long time, and Gastarbeiter and all sorts of traditions here, but this felt like something a bit different in the last few years. And when we dug down a bit, it felt like people leaving not temporarily, but because they wanted to take their entire family somewhere else, and they wanted their children to grow up somewhere else. And that, for me, was the thing that really concerned me, because that is not a short-term temporary decision, that is a permanent choice. And if you're losing tens of thousands of people like that, who are often your most active or mobile people, or people who have options elsewhere, then you're robbing the country of sort of its future leaders, its drivers of change, its entrepreneurs, exactly the people that you need in order to deliver this change. So we started to ask people, okay, well, what are the kind of reasons that you are leaving? And I think, back 3, 4, 5 years ago, the time the UK and Germany worked together, particularly on a sort of new initiative here, it was primarily about the economy. So very high unemployment, and it was about jobs. Now, that continues to be the case. There's still very high unemployment, but what we're hearing as well is also people saying that they're leaving because the healthcare system sucks. They're leaving because they don't like the education that their children are getting. They're leaving because public services seem to be more about providing jobs for members of political parties than about delivering for the people who pay for them. And so that becomes my sort of priority list of what it is that we're trying to help fix. None of that is going to be fixed by one ambassador, one embassy, one partner country coming in from the outside. But actually, and this is reasons to be optimistic. Two reasons. One is there's actually quite a lot of help here. I said the Americans, the EU, the OSCE, they all have huge missions here, huge programs of support. Germany, France, Italy, you mentioned. I mean, these are all countries that want to help. So there's quite a lot of friends out there who are trying to do good things here. And then secondly, the other reason, which seems a bit strange, is the same reason for the brain drain. If you look at where those people are going, and you look at what happens when they get there, generally speaking, they're enormously successful. The last US ambassador said that the Bosnia and Herzegovina migrant community in the US was the most successful migrant community that they had studied in terms of what it was able to do, in terms of its integration, but also being coherent and also succeeding in lots of different areas. And I think you see lots of examples of that. An Austrian justice minister, a Swedish politician, a British member of the House of Lords, lots of members of the diaspora from this country have been very successful elsewhere. So it's not the people that's the problem. It's something about the system at home. And so that then, again, we're looking at what the things we can help. How do we improve the business environment? How do we improve the education system? And that's where all our interventions are.
Speaking of all of those issues and problems, in our country there's really a numerous of NGOs, different kind of associations, things like that. Cerebra is also one of the NGOs registered and doing some things in local area, trying to do more in regional, national, and international level. But how would you describe, is the NGO sector holding well? Are we doing our best here, or we need to do something more?
So, first thing, full transparency. So I joined our foreign ministry from Oxfam. So I have an NGO background myself. So I'm instinctively pro NGOs and pro civil society. I should declare that up front. And again, in terms of my experience over the last couple of years, you know, I keep coming across great organisations, but civil society, and maybe even in a broader sense. So not only sort of activists on particular issues, you've got some fantastic environmental groups around the country. You have some really good groups working with particularly vulnerable groups with children, some politically active. You have lots of sort of classic sort of NGOs or groups like that, but you also have, you know, fantastic sports clubs or climbing associations. You have, I think, in terms of music, you know, people doing great civil society work, which kind of reinforces and strengthens the country. But at the same time, being totally honest, we keep hearing that those organisations are struggling, and they're struggling because many of the people who would normally be participating or supporting them are leaving, or that they are working in quite difficult, sometimes hostile environments, and that they don't get the support that they necessarily need. So we work, quite a large proportion of our programs go through NGOs. We have partners in different sort of priority areas, but I see good examples. I see people succeeding, and I think it is. I'd like to see more of it, and I think, you know, there is more scope to see it. But I think we've also seen it come out in times of need. So, you know, last week before, I went around with a group of volunteers who are helping to deliver food to people who can't leave their homes. That is happening, I know, all over the country. It's not happening because an ambassador has said it's a good idea. It's happening because people have decided that's what they want to do. That's how civil society really works, not by someone coming in and instructing from above. And I think that sort of grassroots civil society even more. And just to make one more point, sort of linking back as well, I think that the temptation, certainly we had it in Oxfam, but you sort of have civil society on one side and then you have business on the other, as if they're completely separate. Actually, I think there is more and more that business and civil society do together in similar ways. And you see it in other places, but you definitely see it here. And I look at something like the IT sector, which is often very successful, competitive internationally, not just locally, and is kind of socially responsible and socially active in things like education system, in advocacy, in you know, not party politics, but politics with a small p, to try to improve the direction of the country. So I think there's lots of reasons to be optimistic there, but yeah, I would like even more.
Yeah, certainly it's more of an issue of the people here and the needs, the real needs on the ground, and sometimes it's really difficult to deal with all of the pressure and a lot of different, let's say, thoughts about how somebody that is engaged with the NGO is a traitor, or, you know, dealing with the foreign powers and things like that. So I think there is a lot of narrative here in the population here, and it makes it even more difficult to fight against it. But yes, that's reality here, and then we have to make the perfect answer on that. You are certainly the right person to have a discussion with, as you are, as I had a chance to read, former Erasmus Plus exchange student. Am I right? Okay.
Yes, right.
And it would be really great that sometimes in the future, after everything of these issues and situation ends, we have some live session, maybe live coffee with here in Banja Luka, with you to hear more, because we have a limited time, unfortunately, here. We don't want to bother anybody from this event, and we limited this on 60 minutes. So maybe we can slowly move on to the questions and other people that were interested about this. So to give them actually chance, I would also invite all of you once again and remind you to be really, how to say, let's say it on the most effective way. Please keep your questions, if you have a specific questions, at the maximum of 1 or 2, because we have 20 people here in the group, and it would be great if, for example, everybody can get the chance to say something or to ask something. Okay. As I can see here, first in row is Maya. Mayo, can you say something so we can check your connection? Maya, I think connection is still.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, but maybe we can go as on the previous event.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So Maya had the question here: is there any chance of further enhancing the UK Banja Luka connection? Because here are so many young people eager to learn English, British, maybe with British accent, and about culture. So that was her question.
Definitely. No, I think that's one of the challenges for us, and again, I'll be totally frank with you. I think it's easy for an ambassador, for an embassy, to slip into just concentrating on the city where you're located, to be totally honest. And I've tried, but I have never been up in Banja Luka as often as I would like. We have expanded some of our staffing there to try to give more of a presence. So there's a diplomat who's up there regularly as well. But I think there's much more we could do and should be doing. I mean, on the language side, we suffer a little bit. I think our French colleagues, Spanish colleagues, even our Chinese colleagues are sometimes a bit smarter about this. So they use their language a bit more as a tool of diplomacy. And somehow we feel, because English is quite widely spoken, that we don't need to do that. I think that's a mistake. So I've been talking to the British Council for a while about what we might be able to do by way of increasing access to language. Now, at the moment, that probably doesn't look like physical interactions, but there's quite a lot, and again, we're learning lessons now that we can do online, that we can do remotely, so that it's actually not just Banja Luka, but it's equally, we should be reaching Prijedor, Trebinje, all different parts of the country. So I think it's a good challenge about what we can do more of with Banja Luka. I'll take the chance to plug our scholarships program. So Ujedinjenog, we have always fantastic quality applicants. We're interviewing at the moment for the year in front of us. I'd really welcome anyone there who has, you just need a little bit of professional experience and a good reason why studying in the UK for a 1-year fully funded master's program is a good thing for you to do. So we have people from Banja Luka at the moment. We've had them in the past. I think I've just encouraged everyone to have a good look at Ujedinjenog, C-H-E, Ujedinjenog, please do. And then there's a kind of a soft power bit as well. And this is, it's going to sound very selfish, but one of the most disappointing bits about the current situation was cancelling the embassy band gig in Banja Luka that we had planned in early April. So we have a fun embassy band made up of staff. We were going to come up, we were going to do a Bond premiere in Banja Luka as well, and all of that got pushed to the side because I think it's good to, you have to spend time. You have to spend time there as well. So I will take that away, Maya, though, as another reminder that even during these times we should be thinking about what more we can do. And as soon as we're allowed to move around properly, I will be up in Banja Luka again.
Exactly, as we were thinking about the exact thing, what should we do and how can we do something more in these critical times and situation, we developed this platform and communication called Coffee With, and also trying to do some other things here on local level, at least online, unless this situation, until this situation is on. But hopefully we can see that the cities and the countries in the surrounding are opening, let's say step by step, but still it goes in some kind of positive direction. And exactly why we wanted to have all of you as a foreign diplomats and ambassadors together with us is to have an open discussion and to maybe think more, to connect more, and to see that we all do have partners in different areas of our country, and then we can all do more to develop our ideas. We had several sessions before, and on some of them there was a bit of ideas, let's say, that might become something more in a future period. So yeah, we can move on now. Katarina says hello everyone from Sarajevo. Hi, Katarina. I don't know if you have a question. Maybe we can see it later on the Zoom group chat. Alexander Bogosavac, I think he's here with several questions, so maybe if Alexander can make it more as a 1 or 2 questions to have enough space and time for the other participants. Alexander.
I think you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
First of all, I would like to say hi to His Excellency Ambassador. It is great to have you here. And hello to the all participants. So my question was generally during this coronavirus crisis, there is, as we can see, there is a kind of unrest from the several EU countries, from regions of Italy, from the East Europe countries, and in generally my question to the ambassador, because Great Britain has left the European Union, and after Brexit, to see what kind is perspective from the Bosnia and Herzegovina, and how should we see our future towards to the European Union institutions and to the future agreements, if there would be some kind of agreements, or should we follow the steps from the Great Britain?
Good questions. Thank you, Alexander. We made it 40 minutes in before Brexit, which is pretty good, actually. That's above average. But I think those are good questions. And so I'll just break them into 2 halves if I can. So the first one about sort of coronavirus. And I don't think it's just EU member states we've seen this kind of unrest. I think it's been the case in a number of other places. And, you know, you look at the US and different challenges there. I think one of the things the current crisis has really tested is this sort of tension between individual freedom and sort of public responsibility or public restrictions. And so, you know, it's been unprecedented. The kind of restrictions that we've had in the UK, unlike anything else that we've been through within living memory, of essentially telling people to stay in their homes, limiting their movement, you know, absolutely restrictive, dramatic curfews. I think when it's worked well, it has been with the consent and with the understanding of the population. So you look at a country like New Zealand. They have had some of the most strict responses to the crisis in terms of movement, in terms of social distancing, but it's all been very well explained in terms of why it was happening. And what the sort of objective was. Even if you couldn't say the exact dates, you could explain why it was being done, what the consequences would be, what the benefits would be. And now you've seen New Zealand start to come out the other side of that. And I think that's a good example of, you know, real leadership. I think Jacinda Ardern is one of those. Interestingly, most of the countries that have done this well have women in charge, which is another point we might pick up as to why that might be. But it's been where it's been well communicated and where it's been done with public understanding. I think that's been where it's been most effective. The places where it hasn't worked as well, I think, is where it's not been communicated in those sorts of terms, and in particular where it's not been linked with clear explanations of benefits, or it's been arbitrary. So I think that has been sort of a broader point, or where maybe some governments have looked to impose more restrictions than necessary or for longer than necessary, that sort of tension. But I mean, we've seen that in lots of places. I think that's a very fair point. On the Brexit side, Brexit, what does it mean for Brexit for Bosnia and Herzegovina? I think it changes some things, absolutely changes. Let's not pretend it doesn't change things, it does. It changes the UK's relationship with the EU, which is being negotiated now in terms of trade. It means that there isn't the same UK voice inside the EU negotiations about enlargement. We have always been one of the most enthusiastic supporters of enlargement. We're not there anymore. And so that is a change. But I am optimistic still that the EU gets that the Western Balkans is not, it's not an enlargement project, okay? An enlargement project suggests sort of you're at the border and the border needs to move further out in order to bring you in. If you zoom out the map, Western Balkans isn't outside Europe. Western Balkans is in Europe. It's already in Europe. It's surrounded by the EU. It's well inside. So I think there is a different argument to be made that this isn't an enlargement project, this is a unification project. And I think you do hear still people saying that. I think the new commissioners come in, I think you see sensible people in important jobs. I think Ambassador Sattler here is a very good example of that, of people who get that this is not the wild frontier, this is a European country that just needs to be incorporated and brought into the family. But that process only really works if there's enough buy-in to the changes and the reforms that go with that. I worked in Croatia on their accession process for the UK. Then I worked in Skopje for that country's enlargement process, working for the EU. Then I came later on. I worked in Bosnia for the EU. So I have a fair idea of this process. When it works, changes aren't because someone in Brussels tells you to do it. Changes are because you want to do it yourselves. And by you, I mean citizens. Politicians are always ambivalent about the enlargement process because it requires change, and politicians, generally speaking, don't like change. They like things the way they are. But citizens that do want that change, that do support those reforms, that's how you make the process work. I've spoken more about the EU, I know, than Brexit. What it doesn't change, I should also say, though, on the UK side is, I think an assumption 3-4 years ago was, the UK is done in the Western Balkans. They're going to disappear, not interested anymore. I don't think you've seen that. I think you've seen more programs, more staff, more presence, and hopefully doing more, not less.
Yeah, maybe we should think more about this topic on a way that let's say people here are often common to say, like, why are you now saying from your side like we should go towards the European integration when your country left EU? And I do promise I done my best to to keep the Brexit out of this table at least, but it's somehow it's always the topic. Yeah,
it's relevant. It's relevant. And one thing, sorry, I'll jump in, Milos. I'm often told, not that you were saying this, but people often say to me, "Why are you telling us to join the EU?" I have never said that this country should join the EU. I would be a hypocrite. It would not make sense. It wouldn't stand up. What I can say is that if that's what people in this country choose, we'll support that. And so I don't think it's for us to say that. And a couple of times, we may have been drifting in that direction and said very clearly, no, we can't. It's not for us to say. It's not for us to say. We can say we support the reforms, we support the changes, we support the choice of people in this country, but we can't say that what's good for you is not good for us. Otherwise, we lose all credibility. One thing I will just add, sort of last thing on in terms of the EU, going back to the brain drain point, is that people are choosing the EU. They're just not waiting for it. They're choosing EU member state countries to go to. They're just not waiting for the EU to come here. And I think that's the challenge for the EU, actually, is to say, people are not against the EU. People are just against waiting.
Probably yes, but the things that I wanted to say here is it is more about us. If we are thinking about like this huge area that surrounds, as you said, all the EU member states are around this area of the Balkan and Balkan. Not just Balkan countries and Western Balkan countries are part of Europe, but I would say maybe the heart of Europe because of that specific geographical position here. And having these two types of concerns in the mind, like why do we have to go there if Britain is leaving? Again, it's about us. Britain has a high level of democracy there, so people went out on a referendum and they said it. We will hopefully also have a chance to go out and to say what do we want. But in the meantime, I personally don't think that there is any other alternative here but the European integrations. But yes, as you can see, we're opening a lot of topics here, and we can move on to hear more participants. As I mentioned, Katarina from a few minutes ago. Katarina is here with us, and she promised 2.5 questions. So let's hear how does it sound from Sarajevo. 2.5 questions.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Your Excellency, being with us. And thanks for the quiz that you do on your Instagrams. It's fun. You made some evenings shorter. 2.5 questions, then I will start with a half, as maybe it can be your last answer. Is there a question you would like to ask young people in Bosnia and Herzegovina, or get an opinion from us on something? But my major questions that I would like to hear about your perspectives is 2 things out of the Brexit, I guess, but it has to do with policies. I'm a very keen fighter for recognition of youth work in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and since UK is actually one of the countries that started off with youth work as a tool for prevention for so many things in a young person's life, I was wondering if Embassy and how Embassy can help us and support recognition of youth work in Bosnia and Herzegovina, or even in the region, I would say, rather more. And very open to talk more about it and more detailedly, like how, and I don't mean only financial support, I mean like really working in advocacy for getting youth work as a profession in this country. So this is my first question. The second question is how, because I know you do this because you're very publicly and transparent in your work, and I really appreciate that. So I know you do this regular meetings in generally, but now with Zoom meetings with other ambassadors. So how often do you talk actually about youth issues in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and how we can bring maybe specific topics to ambassadors meeting next Zoom that you will have or host, or I don't know how this goes. So, and the half question is bring back some questions to us because I know you have them.
Brilliant. Thank you, Katarina. Very good. Yes, I do have questions for you, which I will throw a couple at you. I think the recognition of our youth work point, absolutely, and this is partly based on experience in the UK. So there are very few long-term social impacts you can have without reaching young people, if any. And this is in the context of our sort of preventing radicalization work in the UK, but also of our social cohesion in terms of supporting entrepreneurs, in terms of creative industries. There is nothing you can do essentially without including youth engagement within it. We have some good successes here in these areas. So we had some good programs with the IOM actually, which is on, originally it started off looking at de-radicalization, but actually it's much more about social cohesion. So what does that mean? Actually, what was innovative about the approach was that for once we didn't come up with the answer and then give it to people. So we came up with a way of dispersing funds and then young people deciding in that community what the best way of spending it was. So we've seen groups refurbish a historical building that they wanted to use to promote tourism. We've seen groups organise a blood drive, so blood donations. So I was in Ujedinjenog recently, and I gave blood because the group that we supported there decided that was, and it was very clever. So the way that they used that wasn't only as a health issue, but actually of getting everyone from different communities to engage together. So whether you're from this side of town or from that side of town, it's all the same blood, and you could donate and you could be part of that collective effort. So I think that's sort of giving people enough space to decide for themselves what the most relevant issue is. I think it just makes a lot of sense. So we're going to do more of that because I think that is a good tool for us. Digitalization as well. That's not unique to people, to young people, but it is about, I think, creating more opportunities for careers that are still going to be around in a few years' time. So we are teaching IT and creative thinking in every primary school in the country, and we are trying to shift more and more of the economy and more of the infrastructure over to digital. So we have a mantra in the UK of digital by default, which means that all government services should be on the website unless there's a very good reason they have to be done in person. You know, when I talk to a young person that is an entrepreneur and they say they have to go and pay their taxes every week in person with stamps, that makes no sense. That's not an efficient way of running things. So trying to help with those sorts of interventions. Recognition for the importance of that, I think that comes particularly bottom up often. So I gave the example of Ujedinjenog where we started funding that, but actually the local government, once they saw the impact, they started funding it themselves because they could see this was absolutely one of the most useful things they could do with their money. But it's also about top down at the same time. So you can never attack it from just one way. And this is, you know, I would love to see more young people in Parliament, more young people running for senior office, more young people in government positions, certainly more women as well, because that is chronically bad here in terms of parliamentarians. And I think that's how you improve recognition of the importance of youth work and youth policies. And then your question, which is a very fair one, about how often we really talk about this. Not often enough. I think we do, but not often enough, and often not specifically enough. Socioeconomic reforms, which we've been discussing recently, sort of UK-German initiative a few years ago, we're trying to make sure that socioeconomic reforms coming out of the crisis don't only look at COVID, but actually look at what kind of country you're going to build afterwards. There's a huge amount of money coming in. What are you going to do with it? And making those youth-friendly policies, or listening to what young people say that they need, that's absolutely been part of the conversation. But here's the trick. If you get a group of 40, 50, 60-year-old ambassadors together to talk about youth issues, you are missing the point, really, because we're not the demographic. We are not the people who you should be listening to. And so I think our job is not to come up with the answers, but actually to listen to the people who can come up with answers. And that's part of the reason to talk to groups like this. Which, more by luck than planning, that brings quite nicely onto the question for you. And I think if there's two questions that I would ask, one is, what do you think the UK should prioritise in our increased programmes of assistance? So don't give me a list of 20, but just give me one thing that you think is the most useful kind of thing that we could be doing. And two, I'd be interested in knowing, I won't ask who you vote for, but I'm interested to know if people vote, because the statistics would suggest that young people don't vote in this country, at least not in very large numbers. And I think there's a lot of old people who are very happy about that. So my interest is to what would make more people vote? That's the question. What kind of things do you think the UK should be doing, and what would make more people vote? Thanks, Katarina.
I can just jump in shortly. When it comes to recognition, one of the things that maybe, well, I'm certain that you are aware, but I still have to mention it, is like the fact that youth worker as a profession in this country doesn't exist. So you cannot get yourself educated to support groups of people, of young people in Bukhara to build up something, and I mean, only in NGOs you can be employed as a youth worker. So this is something that I'm very interested in to see, like delivering curriculums into educational programs that will bring youth workers to actually teaching people how to become one, and then actually making job areas for this kind of positions. To answer your questions, yes, I did vote, but I'm no longer by law a young person. And also young people do vote, but they statistics shows that they vote more or less same as their parents. So this is the issue. And what will maybe bring the difference is not telling to people to vote, but to choose. That they have to actually listen to and understand and choose. And I work with an Institute for Youth Development Cult, and I can, maybe not to disturb others, I can share some information, some of the tools that we developed this year for promoting how to choose a political, not party, but a political program that you want to be implemented. So in this sense. And what UK should do, you should definitely keep supporting young people and the youth issues in the country. And, I mean, that's priority of things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katarina. What I would answer on these questions, really interesting ones. And again, really thank you, Katarina, for pointing out the things that are really issues for all of us dealing with the young people and from youth and NGO sector in this country, because we are really struggling, and it's really upsets us when we have a lot of ideas, a lot of energy putting in something, and then getting nothing in return from the institutions, from the people that actually should have been in position to say, well done, you are doing it right, and we want to support you more. So maybe the thing that I would answer on your questions is that I think that UK maybe should really stick with us, with the young people here, because young people here are the true energy. We do have a lot of initiatives, we do have a lot of ideas, but unfortunately, because of all political issues in this country, we often do not have enough support, either by words, either by doing, either by cooperating, or if we're talking about money, funding, things like that. It is really, really difficult for us to deal with it. Regarding the question about the voting and the elections here, for example, maybe it's just my opinion and my point of view, but I was studying the Faculty of Political Sciences here in Banja Luka, and it was normal and logical for our students to go out, when we have elections, and to go out and vote. But as I'm growing up, let's say, here, and the things that I can see here, that mostly young people are more and more maybe afraid about the issue, who is actually counting the votes. As Stalin unfortunately said, it doesn't matter who is actually voting, but the only things that matters is who is counting the votes. So there we can see a lot of issues and obstacles on the level of the country about the election procedure, when we are talking about electronical device and electronically voting, how the politicians are unite, in the manner of that we shouldn't have that implemented here, because obviously a lot of them are then afraid how it is going to affect on their election results. And the main point here is that I think that young people are afraid to vote, not afraid to vote. I mean, it's nothing to go out on the pool and to choose to vote for somebody, but after the election day, you're starting to ask yourself, okay, does actually my vote counts? Because I don't know, maybe I voted for somebody that I really wanted to be on that position, and the guy from the commission just didn't count my vote. But yes, as I said, a lot of questions and a lot of concerns here. And please, I will give the floor also to somebody else to answer also these questions, even though we are really short with the time. We are already 60 minutes in this event. I will ask Alexandra Đukić. She was on Zoom group chat with a question, and maybe she can also use the opportunity to answer on yours.
Yes, thank you, Miloš. I would like to take this opportunity to send my best regards to His Excellency, the Ambassador of United Kingdom, Mr. Matthew Field, and also others. in this Zoom meeting. My name is Aleksandra Đukić, and I'm a member of Perpetuum mobile Institute NGO for Youth and Community Development. My question is, since you mentioned the Achieving Scholarship, can we hear more recommendations or tips in how to become an Achieving Scholar? Since it is known as very competitive scholarship program, something as the skills that are going to be outstanding in our CVs. Some skills or recommendation or tips. Thank you.
Excellent. I will answer your question, Alexandra, and then I'm going to ask you my questions as well. I mean, the Achieving program, first thing is we've just sent our largest ever group. So the group is increasing in each year. So there's more opportunities there. I think the key thing that I like about Achieving is that it's not very rigidly defined. It is not a program for international relations people or a program for lawyers or a program for doctors. It is a program about leadership. And so we get to interpret that pretty widely. I've done lots of interviews through my career. This is what makes people stand out. People who can explain what leadership is and how they are doing it. People who can explain how this course that they want to apply for is going to make them a better leader when they come back. And people who have sort of self-awareness, I think, more than anything. I think at the heart of all emotional intelligence is self-awareness. And so people, it's not that they have all the answers, but it's that they have spent some time thinking about the kind of person that they are and that they want to be. Those are the people who have been really good. And we've sent people to do archaeology courses, music courses, international relations, politics, medicine. You know, we send all kinds of people to all kinds of universities, Oxford, Cambridge, Glasgow, Cardiff, whatever is the best place for that course. And so if you can answer those questions, then you're in very good shape. And just, you know, if you're interested, apply. I mean, do apply. It is, and if you can say that to other people as well. Yeah. And well done for again, someone else working in the youth sector as well. That's incredibly important. What about my questions for you? What should the UK do, and what would make people vote?
What question?
So what would make more young people vote in particular, and what should the UK do more generally?
Information. Also, non-formal education is one of the best ways to informate young people for voting. And I think that the main reason why young people are not voting in Bosnia and Herzegovina is lack of information, and the word politics is very degrading here among young people, because politics equal something non-moral, something bad. So I think that is the main thing and perception that we need to change or to have impact. So I think that more young people should be aware of politics and the things that politics do and can do to our society. So since you mentioned also about leadership, I think that our leaders in Bosnia and Herzegovina and the politicians need to have that collective awareness and to raise that among young people and society also. I think that I want to mention our organization, NGO Perpetuum mobile. It's doing the Academy for Young Politicians in Bosnia and Herzegovina since 2007 also. Now I'm on this project and interviewing young leaders here in Bosnia, and we are discussing every Friday and every Wednesday also about the politics here among young people. And those young people are the great influencers to other young people, and their connections here, and they are great influencers. So I think that the young people like those that I'm interviewing and this project is going to motivate other young people to participate in politics more. Also, tomorrow I'm discussing about with this young politician from Sarajevo, and we are going to talk about women in politics, since it's I think 40%, like it's not equality. So we are going to talk about women in politics too. And I think the quality informations are the best way and tool to fight and to raise awareness towards politics. So I think that the perception and lack of information are the most, let's say, bad side among young people. So I don't know if I...
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much about the explanation of scholarship program and everything, because that's my goal in the future to apply. So we will see. Finger crossed.
Perfect. We are a bit out of time, unfortunately. I have a few more people here online, and I think this actually says that this kind of event and Coffee With is a great platform and a perfect way to be engaged more and to have some quality time while we're having a lot of free time in our daily lives. So for sure, there is an open invitation for you, Your Excellency. As you can see, there is a lot of really engaged young people in our city looking forward to cooperate more and to doing some great things, not only in our city, but in the region and the country as well, together with the other stakeholders as well. I'm going to invite Tamara Cvetković. I think she's with us. She's our friend and colleague from Cerebra, with a short question and maybe short answer on your questions. And after that, in regarding the time limit that we have, we are going to close this event with the final marks of our president of governing board. We cannot skip that person, especially because his name is same as mine. So Tamara, please.
Hello everybody, can you hear me? Your Excellency, thank you for your time today. Currently I'm in Austria and I'm a student on Master for Human Rights and Conflict Management in Pisa in Italy. And a lot of my colleagues are coming from UK. And they are telling me that you are having a great educational system. It's very, very different from Italian one and very different from Bosnian one. So do you have, or can we have some kind of opportunity in this case to use UK model? Because I absolutely agree with Alexandra that we need to change our educational approach and our educational system and to combine the same with the non-formal education. So I also had luck to visit Japan, and I had opportunity to speak with the Japanese students. So also their educational system is very different. And I know that our educational system, we didn't change last 70 years. So can we, with your support with international community, somehow change and create a better future for all youngsters in Bosnia and Herzegovina? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamara. Great question. Education is so important. I mean, it's almost not worth saying, but it is incredibly important in terms of the success of a country. And you look at countries that have gone through really sort of dramatic progress in the space of a generation or so, South Korea, Singapore, some of the Scandinavian countries, Finland and others, all of them have invested very, very heavily in education. So I think you're exactly right. The UK system isn't perfect, but it does have some real strengths, I think, particularly at the university level for the top 10 universities in the world in the UK. And again, I'll plug the Achieving programme as a way of doing that with a full scholarship. But it is, I think it's a broader point you're making about how we can help improve the system here. Bosnia and Herzegovina took part recently in PISA, with the sort of international education standards. And it was not very positive. It was sort of towards the bottom of Europe, certainly. And I think the kind of challenges that you're mentioning were clear in those reports. Education system needs to prepare people for jobs of the future, not jobs of 30 years ago. And I think most of the education systems that are doing this well now are not teaching kids to learn things by memory. They're teaching kids critical thinking. And I think that's sort of at the heart of a lot of this. So it's the reason that the biggest program that we have in Bosnia and Herzegovina is in primary schools, the 21st Century Schools program that I mentioned, and it's about IT, but it's particularly about this critical thinking approach. And we will hopefully expand that. I'm trying to persuade colleagues in London that now is the right time to do that, but it's been successful so far, but we can do a lot more. I think the other part of this as well, and I say this as a sort of artsy social science type, but I think sciences are incredibly important, STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering, maths, and I think increasing people's kids' participation in those subjects has huge benefits. Whether or not they go directly into jobs in those careers, although those careers often have lots more opportunities. But if they have those skills, then they can understand the sort of potential for science in all kinds of different areas. So STEM subjects, and since this is an area where particularly low levels of girls are taking part, we've been doing work with the UN and others on how to encourage girls to look at these subjects seriously as well, just to make sure that we have we make use of the best possible talent that we've got out there. So I think those are the kind of things that we could be doing and should be doing more of. Again, we're not the only people as the UK. The US is doing this, the EU, the OSCE, but I think it's a good challenge that you set about what we can do more of to help improve things here. But it's also not saying that there aren't good things here in the education system, and I think that's important as well. I keep meeting people who are fantastic products of this education system, or the education system of the recent past. And I think if you can retain those things that are good and also build in maybe more of those changes, then you have a really, really good combination. Because, as I keep saying, the people are clearly not the problem. The talent is here. The talent is just often going somewhere else to succeed. So I think we can build on that and do a lot more together.
No, I absolutely agree. I just have a remark connected with the rural parts of our country, because also I'm coming from rural parts in my country, and I'm very happy that I had opportunity to finish 2 masters and faculty, etc. But I know also that it's a very big level of the girls from all around, from the rural parts. They are not getting and not having opportunity to finish faculties. And also the very big problem now, when we are in a period of coronavirus, that a lot of children don't have a possibility to access internet in rural parts. And somehow I'm just afraid that we are allowing the time passing in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I know so many experts, so many wonderful people all around Bosnia and Herzegovina, but somehow we are facing also very negative position, because also a lot of our experts are going outside, and that's maybe the main problem. Also, we had the same answer from the Italian ambassador a few weeks ago. So I think that somehow we are getting the support from the international community, but somehow we need to wake up our community and government and local communities. I'm missing that that link between these two sides. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my personal opinion. Thank you very much for your answer.
Tamara, just very quickly, and then I'll pass back to Milos to wrap up. I totally agree, and I find it very telling that I have not seen any political party campaign that was built around education.
Absolutely.
And that is a quite shocking fact, that when education is so fundamental, but no one here really has made a very strong case and said, we are the ones who will focus on education. And it's such an obvious area to look at. So no, I agree with all of that. And your point about particularly rural people who are based in rural areas, my concern is also that this becomes cyclical, because as you have fewer children, because families are leaving, and small schools are going to be closing, and it'll be even harder to access the same standards of education. But again, I think that is all the more reason for this work and for the youth work that we've been talking about already. Thanks. Back to you, Milos.
Thank you. Yes, almost an hour and a half that we're in this event. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it. It's just saying that we have a lot of things to discuss, and that the quality time is moving really fast in a good company, and having a good conversation and the open discussion as this one. Totally agree with everything that you said previously. And I do really hope that, for example, you, but also your colleagues and other ambassadors can be on some kind our voice towards the institutions in those times when they are actually blocking and not allowing us to come there and to talk to them about the issues. Some of my friends a few years ago said that he seems like we mixed a bit the sectors and the things that we are doing in this area. So we are having the public sector and the NGO sector doing, mixing the things. So instead of NGO, for example, having the initiatives and campaigns, public sector is doing the initiatives and campaigns, and NGOs actually buying the equipment, for example, for schools, providing them with the tools and providing them with all of the necessary materials. Sad reality, but that's something that we all do need to work more on. Not to make this event any longer and to give you all some free time of today's day. The weather here is beautiful. I hope there is as well. I will invite Milos, other Milos Blagojevic. He is the president of our governing board. He is here in Cerebra, so he can maybe also answer some of your questions and to close this event slowly.
Yeah, Your Excellency, thank you for accepting our invitation for this online coffee, and it was a pleasure to hear you and think about a lot of those answers and questions. I have two small questions because of our time, and it was two personal questions. You said that this is your function as ambassadors in the first time you went to Herzegovina. After you finish this mandate, in case of choice, are you going to stay on the Balkan, Western Balkan, or maybe choose some another country great as Bosnia and Herzegovina? And the second personal question, of which club from Premier League are you fan?
Okay, good.
Perfect.
I can do the second one quickly. I do not have a club in the Premier League. My hometown club plays in the third tier of English football, Oxford United, and that is the only team I will ever support, even though there's not much glory in it. So that is my team. The other one about what next, I totally agree with what my predecessor, Edward Ferguson, said. This will be a very hard place to leave behind. I mean, it's an amazing, challenging environment. I would probably go for something completely different. I think the Western Balkans will have had enough of me by then, so it will be good to have a change. My previous postings have been in Brazil. I've lived in Japan, as mentioned earlier as well. Lived in Sweden. So I think there are many more places to discover, and I look forward to doing that. I mean, just to mention on Brazil, because it comes back to the elections point that we mentioned there. This very surreal moment that I had. So I was in the last elections. I was sat observing the count of the votes, and I was sat in a polling station in Kafa, and I was watching the committee counting the same pieces of paper over and over again, getting a different number each time. And I don't think it was corruption. I think it was just a more basic problem than that. But I was sat there for hours and hours waiting. And whilst I was sat there, on the same day, Brazil had its elections. And Brazil, a country of 200 million people, 150 million voters. And whilst I was sat in the polling station in Kakan, I got the results on my phone of the Brazilian election. All votes counted, 100% guaranteed final result. Because the whole process is electronic, and it really reminded me that there are different ways of doing these things. So I'll draw more of those experiences. But no, I think this would be a very tough place to leave. But rather than trying to recreate the same experience somewhere nearby, I would go for something completely different. And just to say thank you again. I really appreciate people's questions and ideas and comments. This is incredibly helpful. I look forward to seeing people in person. And Milos, I'll let you wrap up for us.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate your time and how actually it all went easy with arranging this event with the embassy staff. We do all really looking forward to the opportunity to in a future period met in person here in Banja Luka or in Sarajevo or in some other place in Bosnia and Hercegovina. It was really a great honor being the host of this discussion here. And I'm also inviting all of you to text us, to follow us on all of our social channels. Cerebra is available on the web page. We are also administrator of Youth Info Portal for Banja Luka city and the region, mladibl.com. So we are also publishing some news and the opportunities for young people there. So in any case, if embassy has also something to share or to invite young people on some events or some other types of activities, please do share the information with us. We will be really happy to share it further on with the young people here. Once again, thank you for your time. It was really a pleasure. It's over an hour and a half. This video will be available now on our platform. We were actually recording it for the whole time with a lot of interesting answers. Really do looking forward to have a more open discussions and more time with you. Your Excellency, thank you again. It was really an honor.
No, thank you. Thanks everyone. Take good care, please, and keep well.
Thank you so much. This was also one of the editions of our online event, Coffee With. Hopefully, step by step, as I said previously, we are going to close this whole situation with the COVID-19 staying at home. But till that moment come, please do stay at home and stay positive, but be negative. And we're going to be, I think, in 2 days on our another event. As I said, please do keep following us, and thank you all for all of the participants for your time being with us these events. And yeah, have a nice day. Bye.